Good evening, everyone.
And welcome to the first ever annual Pulp Kitchen Awards.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Please take your seats for this year's Pulp Kitchen Awards. Today's host will be myself, George.
and myself, James. You may know us from Pulp Kitchen Podcast.
We wanted, as ever, to end the year with a look back at the year that has been 2022. Everyone at the end of the year is putting out stuff saying best of, our favourites of.
So many great things
came
came out. We want to look back at all the great TV we watched, the great films we watched, all the things that caught us by surprise, things that we didn't like, things that just those little moments in film that we go, holy shit, how good was that? If you are listening, we are wearing suits.
We're suited
we have
and
dressed
booted.
up from the
Absolutely.
occasion. We're live in front of 5,000 people and millions across the world.
Hello, New York!
And our sponsor is not yet, but we will get one.
Shall I do the Eurovision thing of like, Hello, Europe. Yes. We're like...
Javier Bardem is here, and his wife is also nominated. But if he wins, no, if she loses, he can't win. Uh-oh.
Yes, we wanted to do an end-of-year review because that's what we want to do. I mean, look, 2022 on the whole has been a challenging year in terms of worldwide stuff, but entertainment and art and film content...
Back with a force.
...has been back with a force. This is the first proper... post-pandemic year, fingers crossed.
Yep.
And we wanted to celebrate that.
And there aren't that many films out apart from Avatar, which we covered last week.
Currently right now, exactly.
So we've seen as many films as we can towards the end of the year, and we thought instead of leave you dry from the Christmas to New Year period, we thought we would give you this roundup of 2022, talk through some of our best picks. And as always, when you react to these, please send us in an email. Tell us what some of your best things were. What was your favorite film? Which director did you fall in love with? Favorite music? Any of that.
Yes.
Send it our way.
Your
we
best
would love
discovery.
to hear it.
That's the thing. Even if it wasn't even a new film this year, I'd love to know, like, you know what, I got into Kurosawa this year.
Yeah.
It sounds more exciting than that. You might be listening to this in this sort of weird Christmas, New Year, in-betweeny bit where you're
you don't know what day it is.
Scraping the turkey leftovers into a curry, or you're going for a run to try and burn off the 10,000 calories we've all consumed over the past few days.
Yeah.
But anyway, without further ado, James, let's get on with our ceremony of today, our Pulp Kitchen Awards, with the first category, Best Trailer.
So my best trailer for this year was the trailer for Jordan Peele's Nope.
Lovely.
We had already seen that Jordan Peele had created his own brand of psycho, surreal horror based around racial elements with quirky visuals. And then you get this trailer, and I'm going to pretend, if you're watching this, that you don't know that Jordan Peele is doing this film. You get Keke Palmer being charismatic with Daniel Kaluuya saying, our great-great-great-granddaddy was the first guy to be filmed on a horse. So ever since then, we've had skin in the game. And then ever so you cut to their huge ranch where they wrangle these horses, and the music just turns down. And the trailer stops, and it goes dark. And there's a wide exterior of their house in that valley in the middle of nowhere, and then a white crawl from the top of the screen comes down, and it says, from Jordan Peele. And every so often, everyone's like, oh, this is a Jordan Peele movie.
Exactly.
Of course it is. Cue. Very evocative imagery. Shots wide of Danny Kaluuya running away. A little sight of something darting between the clouds. We have mixed opinions about that actual movie, but as a trailer, fantastic.
I totally agree. That was going to be my trailer as well.
Oh, was it? There you go.
We've teed it off with one in together. And I have nothing other to say except everything you said. I agree. And also when we watched it, because I think you showed it to me on this show.
I think we did, yeah.
And you were like, nope, not off planet Earth. That's what, it could be.
Yeah. And loads of like little glimpses of just really strange and unsettling things.
Yeah.
It felt like it was being...
And people looking up, right?
People looking up, lots just things that seemed to be on a much bigger scale. I was very excited for it.
And we've spoken about, on the show many times this year, about how trailers show too much.
Yes.
They don't tease when they should actually do, that's the main point.
Yeah.
This one was a hell of a tease. And, teaser trailers are always actually the best kind. Like Oppenheimer, another great teaser trailer. Barbie, we talked about recently.
I thought the Black Panther Wakanda Forever trailer was very effective.
That's a full proper trailer.
Yeah.
And that, considering like, I don't have that much feeling towards the original one,
No.
that made me feel pretty moved. So yes, it's been a good year for certain artistic elements in trailers.
Jordan Peele, come up and get your award.
Jordan couldn't be here tonight, but sadly, we'll look after it for him until next year.
Invitation got lost in the post.
James, the award I'd like to give in the next category is for best scene in a
Yes,
movie.
okay.
We've had lots of great scenes this year, exciting ones, moving ones, scary ones, but the scene that I would like to point out is one in a film which I haven't spoken about much, but you have, and it's one that you reviewed on this film and you recommended to me, and I went and then watched, which is a film called The Worst Person in the World.
Yes.
So
I know of the scene you're about to speak.
even without me describing it,
Yes.
yeah. So for those who don't remember, The Worst Person in the World is this Norwegian film from Joachim Trier, which came out earlier this year, and it's about essentially a woman in her 20s, her life from sort of 20s disillusionment to maturity into her early 30s, and it's told in sort of episodic stages with numbers. A lot of it is to do with her identity and also her sexual identity and her relationships. And the point of in the film in which this scene occurs is about 30 minutes, 40 minutes in. So if you're really hot on spoilers and you don't want to know anything, then stop listening. But at this point in the film, Julie, the main character, played by Renata Reinsve, is with her boyfriend. She's in an established relationship, and they're at an event in Oslo in the summertime, which just looks beautiful. And he has to hang back for something, and she sort of wanders down. And crucially, it's his event where he's the center of attention because he's a cartoon artist, and everyone's sort of celebrating him. And so she's sort of hanging on a little bit. And she wanders down into Oslo, and it's sort of sunny in the setting. You mentioned this in your review, and she's walking past all these other sort of social activities that are happening. There's a party, there's people, hanging out, and then she walks past this one big party, which soon becomes clear as a wedding reception.
Yeah.
And she just walks in, and she just enters, and the scene that then occurs, which I think is really brilliant, is that she grabs a glass of wine, she starts talking, and pretty soon she immediately catches the eye of another young man there. And it's clear they have immediate chemistry, and they start talking and flirting, and they become very apparent very early on that they are both in relationships. And they talk about it, and they're like, look, I can't do anything, I can't do anything. And then you have this scene where they knowingly and playfully explore the line of what is acceptable for them as two people who are already in separate relationships to do together when they're not themselves a couple.
Yeah.
And they have this, for example, she leans in and like smells his armpit, and he laughs, and they're drunk as well. So they said, that's pretty playful. So they smell each other, and then they drink from each other's drinks. And you have this sequence of increasingly intimate things that they do along
like in
this
the room
line.
with where the coats are, so no one can see what they're doing, but they're kind of in the party, but kind of
yes,
not.
exactly. And they're becoming increasingly separate from the main activity of the party, and the tension and the enjoyment is watching them walk this line that is incredibly like on a wider social point. It's something that you could discuss. I mean, you and I have, and like with friends, we've talked about like that whole idea that's happening in that scene about preating, right? Which is, this idea
ways in which people behave that they wouldn't do in front of their partner, but
Yes.
it's not technically on paper cheating, but emotionally it probably is. And the
for
way
some
you feel
people,
is probably
so
cheating.
Watching that scene, for some people, might think that Julie crosses the line, but for others might think that what she's doing is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
The reason that's my favorite scene is because when I saw that, I thought, I've not seen anything like this, actually.
Never seen it
I've
captured
never
before.
seen this. This is really new. I've not seen this played out. And there are lots of great things in The Worst Person in the World film. I think probably you like a bit more than me. I don't know that I dislike it at all, but
I loved it.
there are really strong moments, and that is particularly one of them. And I left thinking, that really stayed in my mind, that scene. What an interesting little moment. That's my favourite scene of the year.
And the way in which they say goodbye, it's now the early hours of the morning,
Yes.
drunk, and they're both realizing, the day has come, the truth of tomorrow has occurred. And they're both just like walking away from each other, and they look back, and he's not looking back, but then she turns away and he looks back, which is almost a cliche, but for that, it's so well done. And I'm actually glad, I was going to choose that scene, but didn't, but I'm so glad that we've been able to talk about it, because it's an incredible scene. And just, it was that kind of writing that made me think, this film just feels so honest and so real. And even though it deals a little bit in the slightly heightened creative world where there's that moment where everything freezes and she
Yes,
runs through,
yeah,
and it's a little bit 500 Days of Summer, like we said, but not
Oh
quite.
my God, yeah.
But yeah, what an incredible scene to escalate that movie into a new category for me.
I think if you haven't seen Worst Person in the World and you like those kind of like character studies that are kind of like funny, sad study of young people, that I definitely give it a watch.
The restlessness of a relationship.
For me, without spoiling it, it's that the second half I found took a narrative direction in regards to the fates of one of the characters in it, which I felt made the film about almost changed the subject of the film and was a bit distracting from the main thing. But on the whole, very good stuff. Great acting in there, not only from Renata Reinsve, but I can't remember his name, but he the male actor who plays her actual boyfriend in that scene.
Classic, like really honest performances from like a Norwegian language film. It just feels very authentic. And
I definitely want to see Joachim Trier's other stuff. But James, what is your favourite scene? So that was it. Sorry. So Renata couldn't be here today.
Please, come
on. That is the scene of my favourite scene of the year. Worst
She's
person
behind
in
the
the
camera.
world.
She's too shy. She's a shy actor.
James, please tell me, what is your favourite scene?
My
of the
favourite
year?
scene is a scene which I have spoken in detail about on the show, and I think it's probably one of yours as well. My favourite scene is in a film called Men, and you know exactly what scene this is. This is the turning point in the film, about 25 minutes in, and it is the abandoned rail yard train tunnel scene. This scene was absolutely horrifying. It's the first introduction of horror, the introduction of the threat. It takes the lovely, romanticized, beautiful, pastoral, positive elements of the country and completely flips it and reverses it in one quick motion. What was the joy and solace of isolation becomes absolute terror and fear and just that need to run away and get into civilization. It is this moment where she is escaping from her sad life in London, comes into the countryside and goes on a nice country walk in this new house that she has rented. If you have listened to my Men review, you have heard this scene. And she goes towards this abandoned railroad and looks into the dark black void of a tunnel. And she starts realizing that there is a huge like echo where if she says something into the tunnel, it sort of comes back. So she goes, ah, ah, and then comes back as, ah, ah. And she realizes she starts playing with these tones, ah, ah, ah. And then what she hears at the end of the tunnel is a sound that comes back, and it's, and at the very end of the tunnel, stood there, is a thing that emerges from the ground, silhouetted in black, the shape of the Green Man, an sort of specified, amorphous, natural green being that all of a sudden looks up at her and starts walking towards her in the tunnel. She's already like a third of the way through the tunnel. Running towards her, and she runs back, and even while she's running away, she just hears, ooh!
Yeah.
And what goes on is the rest of that film, which was just absolutely terrifying, completely horrifying, a really great, original, new, slightly wacky concept.
Slightly.
And the last scene really does go for it. And we've talked about that, and you can hear our Men spoiler review on the show. But that scene just completely gripped me, terrified me, never really seen anything like it. And I just thought, what a wonderful way to introduce your Michael Myers-esque villain that was sort of like an unstoppable stalking force. And Alex Garland continues to be one of the most interesting and evocative filmmakers, and I'm just really glad that Men happened this year.
Yeah, I agree. We've spoken about Men quite a bit. I would say that now having some distance from when I saw it, is that I absolutely agree with you. All those things are very thrilling and very terrifying and enjoyable from like a horror point of view. All I will say is that I thoroughly understand if people get to the third act and go, no,
You lost me.
You lost me. I accept that. It's not a complete picture. I get that. But the ride I had and the joy of watching it with my friend, both of us go, my God, this is really uncomfortable and really strange. Absolutely. Great scene. Really good choice. Okay, our next category is for the best singular line in a movie or moment of dialogue. I'll allow a couple of lines if you need. Because nothing stays in your mind more from a film, from a whole hour, 2 hour experience than a great moment of dialogue. For me, actually, the line that stuck with me, and I could have chosen a couple from this film, is from Top Gun Maverick, and it's "You told me not to think," right?
Yeah.
So most people would have seen Top Gun Maverick this year, but people will know that it's this, it's Mav and Goose's son, Rooster, bumping heads the entire film, having this conflict, and Mav saying to him, you're too hot-headed, you're not thinking clearly, you when you're up there, you just need to you can't think, you haven't got time, don't think,
Listen to me.
Yeah, you can't think. And then sure enough, Rooster acts out on his own, and then Mav nearly dies, and that's not really a spoiler, but I suppose I should say, we're getting to the end of the year, and
Chances are you've seen
it. But if you've not, don't worry. Mav says, "What were you doing? What were you thinking?" And he says, "You told me not to think." And when I saw that, people laughed out loud in the cinema.
And that's also a moment when I thought the film was almost done, but no, they are deep behind amorphous communist enemy lines.
Yeah. Amorphous communist,
There's sort of, you realise there's going to be this whole other riveting action sequence where it's just them.
Yes.
And these two people that have been conflicting are going to come together to fight. Oh, the film is so perfect.
I know. Also, I would never have thought that a Top Gun movie would have a good line in it like that. The other one I was going to choose in that film is the "Thanks for saving my life." It's what my dad would have done. It's like, whoa, God, ride the feels.
I think I want to rewatch it. I think I really need to. It is that good.
It's very well pulled off. So who knew that a film that you wouldn't associate with the writing, but Top Gun Maverick is what I'd say. James, what about you?
My favourite line is a film that I saw very recently, and it is a line from the film Living, starring Bill Nighy, which you very wonderfully described in your review. And mainly it's because I think that Bill Nighy's performance is completely transformative and so gripping and just draws you in. He does one of those softly spoken, really sort of quiet and a little bit less is a little bit more. And it just is so evocative. And it's this moment when he is in his office working and everyone is going by their day to day, and he just starts to speak in the middle of the day, which he wouldn't do. And he says, "If you don't mind, I would actually like to ask you to deputise. I will be leaving at 3:30 to go for an appointment, and I would like you to deputise on my behalf." And it's not just the way in which he delivers it, it's the way in which everyone stops what they're doing to watch him. And this wonderful, I spoke about it before, that analog office, how everything was, it's not just the line, it's the way in which he uses his body and moves things and puts bits of paper up on his shelf, and everyone's reaction to the line.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was fantastic. And it's just Bill Nighy transforming in front of my eyes.
Because that line typifies, at that point in that film, exactly what that character is.
Yes.
Exactly. The kind of person who would say something like deputise and say it in such a mono.
And we know that there's probably so much he's probably so worried and scared in his own mind, but he refuses to sort of let anything go by, and he just says, well, what I'm doing is absolutely normal. Please, I've already thought exactly about how I'm going to say this. And later on in the film, it reveals that he does really try and plan what he says in his head, and he isn't this he's not a robot.
Mirror when he's
And I just it just is a line that really stuck with me, and it brings the film to a halt. It's all pace and movement and music, and it's like, whoop, what's happening here? And then the film goes on from there. But I thought it was really
There's
sweet.
some good,
really
there are actually quite a few standout lines in Living.
Yeah.
I've wanted to sort of come down here to live a little, but I don't know how.
Bit of a bore, really.
Yeah, I just wanted to be a gentleman.
Yeah.
There's very touching film with Living. As we know, we've mentioned it a few times, and hopefully you've had a chance to go see it as well.
It's been in cinemas for longer than I thought, which is great.
Yeah, they really pushed it hard on the marketing.
Yeah.
And in Mac, just to get it, bloody beautiful film to look at.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, it's probably a good one for Christmas time. It's got that kind of slight fable, like I said, Charles Dickens, It's a Wonderful Life-esque element to the whole story. So if you haven't seen it yet, and you don't fancy going to see Avatar, go and see Living.
Go and see Living. That's probably why, actually. It's like, let's just extend the other films that are still
already there, yeah. Okay, on to the next one, which is the award for the biggest surprise this year. They don't have that at the Oscars, do they?
No.
Okay. For me, this isn't like a huge surprise. I mean, obviously, sometimes you see films that are better than you expect, etc. But for me, a big surprise for me was the film Prey, which you haven't seen yet, right?
No, I haven't. I remember you saying.
My surprise with the film Prey was that it was, one, they've made a new Predator film. 2, they're only releasing it on Disney+. 3, it's actually really quite good and solid. And as you described when I reviewed it, exactly what it needs to be. Doesn't need to be anything more than that.
Yeah.
It's exactly as that film should be. Doesn't need to tease a bigger world. It gets in. It's so nuts and bolt, and it is so nuts and bolts and solid. And you've got a bit of flying coming up over Christmas, and I'm like, perfect play movie.
Yes,
I think if you can bit of
great. I'll load it up.
It's so serviceable. I'm like, you can rely on that to fill in a slot. So yeah, Prey, if you don't remember, was this Predator prequel that came out on Disney Plus, set in like the 1700s in the Great Plains of America, with a Native American community which are besieged by one sole predator. Great stuff, really good, fun little action movie moments and good bits of gore. Great.
I love it when you and I get to the beginning of the year or the end of the year and you and I look ahead at all the big films coming out from the big directors and the big studios with the big actors and we go, ooh, that film, and ooh, that film. There's lots of films which we look at and we expect great things from them.
Yeah.
But I always like it when there's a film that wasn't on my radar that I didn't think was going to be even interested in seeing, that I see, and I come to the end of the year, and I go, that is one of my top 5 films of the year, and I didn't even know it existed. It makes me excited for next year, for the thing which I already don't know about, which is going to already be my favourite. And this year, a film that I wasn't aware of that absolutely took my breath away was Barbarian. It's my biggest surprise because I just wasn't really thinking that. I think I was aware of it, but I didn't know it would be as solid as it was. We reviewed it a couple of weeks ago, and I think, it was just amazingly paced, and it was exactly how good its horror concept is. It was wonderful at just twisting constantly at every turn. It knew how long you wanted to pay attention to its concept.
Yeah.
It was scary. It was a little bit funny.
Yeah.
And it just every so often made me feel like immediately engaged and that what this was doing is something very special. And I keep saying to people, have you watched Barbarian
Yes.
yet? Oh my God, cancel everything and go watch it.
Yeah.
And it surprised me and it's in my top 5 films of the year, I think.
More and more of that later. And following that, not that we like to be negative, but quickly, if we say biggest disappointment, I think I'd have to say, and I will see this film again to be sure, but my biggest disappointment was probably Jordan Peele's Nope. We talked about the trailer.
It's on my list, but not,
It's like, I love Jordan Peele, and don't get me wrong, there is plenty of stuff in Nope that you can pick out and engage. And when I've spoken to people about it, they've said, "Oh yeah, but it's about this, it's about that." And I'm like, I see what it's about. I totally get it, but the way it has not synthesized and synergized its themes and ideas with its actual action and drama is the problem for me. And dare I say it? I think we said this when we watched it. I got a little bored. And I hate that. I should not be bored.
All the loose threads, like with the chimp and things they really teased at but didn't follow through.
As I said before, like Jordan Peele film, I expect it to be one of 3 things, or hopefully all of them, but funny, scary, or interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get any of those. I got a little bit of thrillerness. It was a little bit funny. And it was very vague in its interest. So, sorry to say, because at the beginning of this year, we talked about films we're most excited for, and actually Nope, I think
Nope
was
hot. We watched the trailer and everything.
Yeah, so sadly, I think Nope was a bit of a disappointment for me. What about you, James? What was your biggest disappointment, if you had to have one?
I went to sit down and look at my biggest disappointments, and quite a few films came up, some of which I think I probably expected them to be bad.
I think I have a feeling of what yours might be.
Well, I was very disappointed with Jurassic World Dominion, a beloved franchise, but I can't say I expected that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like,
Doctor Strange 2, I thought, was very disappointing, even though I didn't think Doctor Strange was the pinnacle of Marvel IP. I think I was hoping that Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness would be this very exciting uplift, and it wasn't. I think the film I was the most critical of this year was Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore, which I really went on a rant, which went semi-viral on TikTok. But I think the film Thor: Love and Thunder, very
that's
disappointing.
what I thought you were going to say. Yeah.
The film I was the most disappointed with, which is again a trailer you and I reacted to on the show that I think we were genuinely excited for, was Don't Worry Darling.
Oh my God,
I really expected a lot more from
Crushing
that
disappointment.
concept. And, I watched it, I think, with a big bag of excitement on my back, and I was giving it a lot of rope. And, in the first half, I think I was, enjoying its style, and I was ready to, really, get something nutritionally dense out of it. And just, the more and more it revealed, the less and less interested I was in that film. And it turns out that even though it was teasing to do something really clever and subversive and have some really interesting concept, it turned out to just be very boring, very obvious, actually quite confusing as to what the rules of its universe were. I'm trying not to spoil it, but because I know people probably want to catch up on it at some point. But just a huge disappointment. And Olivia Wilde is someone who I actually quite like,
and all the talent, even Harry Styles. I would.
Yes, and there were some actually really likeable parts in that film. The design and sort of the choreography and the way in which it looked, I thought were all so well done. It had so many ingredients ready for it to do something really special. And I just think it's a shame that film is nowhere near as clever as it was trying to tell you it was going to be.
I know, and I mean, I was quite frank in my opinion when I gave it to you, but for me, the reason I wanted to back and champion Don't Worry Darling, I was really looking forward to it,
Yeah.
was because it was like ostensibly original IP.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't based on a book, it was coming out of nowhere. And it was so disappointing to go and see a film that could have been original, but ended up being it was so disappointing to go and see a film that was ostensibly original,
Yeah.
but was actually so derivative of
Yeah.
other things. I've seen more original franchise films. I've seen
Yes.
more original sequels than this. Top Gun Maverick, in a way, was more original
Yeah, yeah.
in its plot than what we got with Don't Worry Darling. It was such a shame. Anyway, that's one little negative bit over. On to the more positive categories. Let's just talk about music quickly, because obviously features, and we've had loads of questions this year about best soundtracks and stuff and everything. I actually will quickly just say, even though we didn't like the film, I do think the score for Blonde was incredibly distinctive from Nick Cave,
100%.
Warren Ellis, and I have been listening to that independent of the film, so that's always a sign of success. But in terms of the use of music, actually, I'd actually give another shout out to Worst Person in the World again. Purely because there is a song from that film that I discovered and then got into so much that it was like high up on my Spotify Wrapped, which is this song by Todd Rundgren called Healing Part 1. And it's at a point early on in the film where she's aware of the pressures of women in her age to sort of settle down and get married and have children. And she's aware of the familial pressures from that, from her family. And this song kicks in and it's like, listen to the voice, and it's just a great beat. And there are songs dropped in very strategically throughout Worst Person in the World, which I really liked. So those are probably off the bat the two from me. You?
And before I give my answer, I'd like to give a shout out to the Everything Everywhere All at Once music and just how much is going on in that film. I would love to see the mood board for the different ideas and how many different things they brought together. I would love to see the edit timeline of just like what that film looks like to cut together and how many different scenes and bits they are, which they stitch together with music and it was merging different themes, cultures, styles. And I just think, what a behemoth task.
To be the jockey to sort of rally together all those different tones into
and
music.
have it make sense. And let's give a shout out to that. But my winner goes to one of the biggest films of the year, and it's going to be Michael Giacchino's score for The Batman.
Oh,
which
right, of course.
uses lots of music from Nirvana, and its actual main track is clearly inspired by the Something in the Way. It's this heartbeat drum that runs through the entirety of The Batman. And I think when you go to do another Batman, after we have had so many, you have had Christopher Nolan come in and completely redefine not just Batman, but modern superhero storytelling. You then have another Batman that comes out with Zack Snyder. And then you have to reboot it again, separate to what's going on with DC in its own universe, with a new Batman, with an entirely new vision. And I think it must be a really hard thing to take so many immediately iconic scores and have to do something that feels, I think, completely original, but so true to the comics. And I just feel like that, whenever I see the red silhouette of Batman in a poster, I hear that music. And I think that is a sign of a really effective score. I love the moment when Batman, and I watched some of the special features recently where it was, the cast and the director talking about there's this opening scene where it's like, how do we get a man dressed as a bat to walk into a live crime scene and have it not look weird? And how is it that people are going to react to a man turning up looking as a bat? And I think that first scene is so good, and you've got Jeffrey Wright talking almost at a snail's pace. It says to the Batman,
does this mean
anything to you? Mean something to you? And then he walks very slowly over, but it's all to the beat of his own drum. And it's this idea that this is Batman's crime scene now. I am the center of the attention. Everything means something to me. And there's this idea that Batman is new to this. He is figuring out what it means to be Batman. He is realizing how other people are reacting to him. He is really just trying to be the most observant detective he can be. And I just think that score is fantastic as a slow little heartbeat in those scenes. And then when he's chasing the penguin through and the car has been flipped upside down and it's on fire, and that score is just screaming at you. And Batman is in red and black, just slowly walking towards the car. And it's like, wah, 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 wah. And my hair is being blown back on my my face. I'm just watching it going, holy shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most simplest scores are the ones that are the most powerful and most memorable. And I think that will be immediately, I cannot wait to see another Batman in hopefully like 5 years and get back to that score, and back to those characters.
Great choice. You know, actually, so basically, James reviewed the Batman, and then I went and watched it, and then our spoiler discussion about it, we lost, sadly.
Shame.
So we've actually never spoken about it, the two of us together.
Yes.
But I would just say, it doesn't feature in my upcoming awards for this episode.
Yeah.
But I will say, I thoroughly enjoyed the Batman. I think it's incredibly solid. And if I look at some of the best big budget blockbuster films I watched this year, I hold the Batman up very highly. I was really, really gripped. It is very long.
Yeah.
And obviously it does, with any long film, it does start to fatigue a little, but I was impressed at how long it really had me hooked.
I loved its universe. Its own
Loved
Batman
its universe.
Felt
I
so
love all
distinct.
the cast in it. I love the wacky, like terrifying Riddler-ness, the over-the-top element of the Riddler, because Riddler's meant to be over-the-top. Do your impression of Paul Dano as the Riddler?
Well, what are we going to do for a time?
Yeah.
Justice will be served.
Yeah, this wailing from Paul Dano.
He's waiting for the mask. He's really, his voice is cracking and breaking.
But then you get this, and then Colin Farrell in the Penguins.
Oh, Charles,
hey, for
what
God's
is
sake,
it?
what the fuck? What is this? Good shit? Was it good
Good cop, bad shit cop.
Yeah. I really,
John
really liked it. I've
Turturro's
just never had an
fantastic in
opportunity.
it.
Oh my God, I forgot
So
he was in
good,
it. Yes.
yeah. And like it's almost like an unexpected casting. But
Yes.
he's fantastic in it.
John Turturro. Oh man. So big congrats to Matt Reeves for putting it off in a really, really and R. Pat's doing a great job with.
Continues to be one of the most interesting young
Shouldn't call him R.
talents.
Pat's actually. Yeah. It really, really works there. And Zoe Kravitz, Andy Serkis.
I
as
adored
Alfred.
the anamorphic, dirty lens, characterful cinematography. It was just fantastic to look
Fighting
at.
in the darkness, and as people fire their guns, you can see the silhouette.
It was almost like 30% on the way to Sin City in terms of its
Yes.
graphic novelness, which I think is just about enough for that.
Yeah.
And I think I'll rewatch it maybe over the break if I get the time.
And we've been talking this year in the context of a superhero landscape that's becoming incredibly tired and sort of stagnant with Marvel. And equally,
Busy
the
and
rest of
packed.
DC is also like, as we talked last week, like incredibly doing lots of changes. Like Superman, yes, Superman, no.
Yeah.
And it's just like Batman came in and just thought, well, we're just going to do this.
I was almost glad that they went, we're not going to try and tie Batman into everything else unsuccessfully. Why don't we just do a Batman film?
Yeah.
Give it to
Shocker.
a creator and an artist and have them have their one singular vision. They've not got to tie into a bunch of baggage with Apocalypse or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's just do a really good detective Batman film.
And it was nice to see like Matt Reeves as a director like graduate from, he's like, okay, he did the Planet of the Apes films. What's he going to do next? Oh, wow, really get a chance to flex your creativity.
Yes.
So I agree. Good shout with the Batman for best music.
And also, sorry, just one more thing. It was such a noir detective piece.
Yeah.
They just went, let's be a Fincheresque Seven.
Yes.
All of it. Let's just Zodiac. Let's really lead into like the really early Batman comics where he was a detective. It was less about bombastic superheroes. It was just clues.
You know what
and
DC
things.
originally stood for?
Detective Comics.
Exactly. Okay, next up, it's the category for best performance. And we're not doing best actor, best actress, just sort of best performance.
Yep.
And this is really hard because we've had a lot of good. We were just talking about like worst person in the world, like great acting
There are so
all
many.
around. I mean, so many. So you have to approach this on from a very personal kind of perspective. And I think I'm going to give a 3-part answer. This will come as no surprise because I've kind of spoken about this throughout the year. So I've got a 3-part answer, and I'll tell you why I couldn't commit to one. So, for example, I've seen The Whale, and I know that Brendan Fraser's performance in that is very, very good and fantastic, right? But everyone is going to that's just it's the news at the moment. Everyone knows that Brendan Fraser's performance is very good. So in a way, I don't want to spend a lot of time rehashing my Whale review. You can go and see it if you like, but he is fantastic in it. That's no surprises there. But that's very much almost like next year's story because that's going to be the award season in January, February, right? His main competitor in the award season actually is one that I do want to point out as well. Is Austin Butler for Elvis.
Yes.
Here comes this newcomer. Yes, he's been in other things, but taking on one of the most famous people of all time in a film that is incredibly wild and flawed, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, but in the center of it, up against like Tom Hanks doing Jabba the Hutt, you have Austin Butler doing a really great performance as Elvis, just getting the star quality and the groundedness and the perfect blend that you need to exist as a fully functional human being in the Baz Luhrmann circus.
Yeah.
And, you know, since then, Austin Butler has kind of acquired this kind of like quasi-mythic status of this rock and roll star.
Man out of time.
Exactly.
Star out of time.
The way he talks, the way he carries himself, he's brought this whole new style. So it was incredibly refreshing. So that's another one. But also, I do want to repeat a point I made before as well, and we just talked about the Batman, is that if I was to choose a performer, an actor, it would be Colin Farrell again.
Yeah.
For the reason I gave before, which is that if you look at the performances this year in Banshees of Inisherin, in 13 Lives, and The Batman, they are completely different. And also he did After Yang as well, which I haven't even seen, but I've heard is very different. If you look at his work in that, completely different, but each time giving us something so refreshing, so committed, whether it's, you know, comic and caricatured, or whether it's mundane and straight, just really good. I know some people, we had their email said that they thought Colin Farrell's performance was sort of ahistorical for Banshees.
Sure.
Those would be the ones that stick out to me. Now, I'm aware I've just named like 3 men, but for the record, like I said, Renata Reinsve in Westminster Whale, Michelle Yeoh in Everywhere, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Remember that?
Yeah, you got it.
Something, Dark Side. Plenty. But for me, I think the ones that I've sort of kept track of this year has been Austin Butler, Brendan Fraser. So Austin Butler's looking back, Brendan Fraser's looking ahead, and as a whole, Colin Farrell.
I remember seeing, I haven't seen Elvis, but I remember seeing on social media people were mirroring Austin Butler's performance of an Elvis song, and then they were getting the exact real life performance from Elvis and stitching them together. Yeah. And it was like watching a mirror. It was just crazy. It really made me want to go and
there's something more to it than just like what Rami Malek did with Freddie Mercury. There's something more to what Austin Butler's bringing, because I think the chemistry and the alchemy he has with Baz Luhrmann is interesting. Anyway, those are my crops. Sorry, it's not a definitive one, but hey, I don't want to be mean.
I want to give a shout out to Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick.
Fair play.
Cannot be overstated. This isn't my choice. It cannot be overstated how that film did not have a right to work to the extent that it did. Yeah. And I think without Tom Cruise at the helm, I don't think you get the same film in any way. Yeah. And I just think there's a reason why that man is still at his age in the 2020s making films of that quality that everyone wants to go and see.
Yeah. And it's the biggest film of the year.
Biggest film of the year, biggest film of his career. And Tom Cruise is a weird guy, man. But God damn it, I love watching him on screen.
We'll have him on. I mean, I don't want to disrespect him. Like, we'll have him on. But
my choice for best performance is actually more of a supporting role. And it's a performance you and I have mentioned a few times now. And it's a part that I think in less capable hands would have completely fallen flat. And it is Anthony Hopkins in Armageddon Time.
Oh, right, yes.
Now, I mean, look, original idea that Anthony Hopkins is really talented in a movie. Wow, shock horror. But I wanted to do it because I think that I don't know if many people are going to mention it. I know we've mentioned Armageddon Time, I think 3 times in a row in our last few episodes. But if you have seen this film, you know the role that Anthony Hopkins plays. Armageddon Time it was a film by James Gray, which was set in the 1980s. It's very much about generational anxiety around oppression, and it was about race and ways in which different people are received by authority and by the law. And
how prejudice is viewed, but from the context of both a middle-class Jewish family and a working-class black.
100%. And you know how different references of masculinity are reflected in each generation, and how that affects this young boy and the lens with which he's seeing the world. And the first half of that movie, I think you're almost like, what is it doing that's really original? And it is through, I think, the performance of Anthony Hopkins that allows the complexity and the nuance of what James Gray is trying to telegraph, which feels immediately personal. It feels incredibly complicated, and it allows you, he does so little, but you can see in his eyes that he's probably had a million conversations about exactly what the words that he's delivering mean. And when you get to the point where he's trying to communicate the message of the film and what you have to do, I think it just absolutely rips your heart out of your chest. And it's not just a good performance, it's a complex and nuanced and just completely tear-jerking and sad to watch. And I don't think anyone else could have done it that wasn't Anthony Hopkins.
Agreed. I think that's a great shout. I mean, people listening will know we've mentioned that a few times now, but go and seek it out if you can. It's a real strong piece of work. James, should we talk about best directors?
Yes.
In film. I was thinking about this on the way over. Again, a bit like actors, you could really look at stuff. I mean, like, I know we've spoken about it a little bit, but what Charlotte Wells did with After Sun, I was like, that's a clear debut British talent coming through that I really, really admire. Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick, pulling that off, the very tactile, physical filming, really good. For me, though, the best director I would have to give to Rian Johnson for Glass Onion.
Yep.
Because you watch Glass Onion, which people should have had opportunity now to watch because it's out on Netflix. And this is not going to reveal any spoilers, but I think I mentioned this in my review that every single thing in Glass Onion is deliberate and well placed, but not in a way that feels forced or, when we talked about Avatar 1, that it's like this film has an answer for everything and it's very instructional, like you need to know this, this, and this. Glass Onion is different. It places everything in a very curated, carefully detailed fashion that makes you feel like you're wandering through a fun house. And everything you go, oh my God, I can't believe someone's worked so hard to put such a small, tiny detail in there for me to have fun. I mean, the way that like Johnson directs the camera and the way he wants you to look at certain things at a different time. And often for comedic effect, it's like, I will set you up over here and then I'm going to turn the camera over here and there's the punchline. It's just such a bouquet of interesting delights and talents, both visually and then the way it is able to then execute its whole mystery at the heart of it. I just thought it was really great. And some people might not like that. Some people might not like to be sort of contrived and played around with so much as an audience member. For me, I really like that. And I will talk about that more a little bit when we get to our sort of overall pictures of the year.
I think when, writing your own whodunit, I think it would be incredibly easy to feel very up your own arse when writing it, but that film is so clever and never once feels pretentious.
No,
it
exactly.
never once lets you feel like the director is so much smarter than you.
Yeah.
And often like the most stupid obvious answer was what it was, and it never... as you said, it's like a fine-tooth comb film. Everything was there for you in the first place.
When you said when you reviewed Avatar 2, you were like, we've been given nothing to do.
Yeah.
With Glass Onion, it's like Rian Johnson said, oh my God, it's going to be so much fun. We're going to give you so much fun to play with. We're going to give you so much to do. You're going to be involved in this. And that's what it is. You're watching and thinking, I feel so engaged because you've gone to such lengths to make sure that every minute, every second of my time, it's almost like a very maximalist way of designing a film. It's like every square inch of runtime is going to be populated with something that you can enjoy and devour. And if we haven't got a joke here, we'll have a great bit of costume design. If we haven't got costume design here, we'll have a great bit of set design. Just great fun. Rian Johnson, what a talent.
Rian Johnson was on my list of shout-outs, as well as Bones and All director Luca Guadagnino, which I thought was fantastic. I know you didn't quite get on with it.
Yeah, sorry.
But my award for Best Director is a film that you and I both really enjoyed, and it's Philip Barattini's Boiling Point.
Oh,
but
right, yes, of course.
But mostly because I think when you do a one-shot film of that nature, which is set all in one room, pretty much, give or take, I think that is so much harder to pull off than I think you could ever give it credit for watching. And I think the way in which it was able to tell this amazing story with multiple different strands and make me feel immediately connected to everything happening in real time. And it was such a tense and thrilling watch for something that on the surface feels so low stakes. It's just a restaurant. Like, why am I so like gripped? And I just feel like I'm walking through the space, and I just can't even imagine how hard it is to balance that whilst working in real time. If you want to change a part of that film, it affects the entire ordering of all of it. And the fact that I think you could probably watch it as an amazing stage play, and that I could only imagine. I'd love to pick the brains of Philip Barattini and go like, what was it like to try and rehearse this? What's it like to try and reset the food and the decor when you actually practically rehearse that film and capture it in a way which, we've talked about one-shot films and how sometimes they could feel quite gimmicky. That never felt gimmicky to me. It felt like the only way to capture that character, to capture that performance. You would have lost a sense of the hectic, real-time energy if you didn't do it like that. And I think it's worth shouting out that director is a huge talent who I'll be looking out for, and I'm so excited that film has captured so many people's imaginations and it's doing as well as it did.
I totally agree. I really loved Boiling Point, and good on you for shouting it out because, deeply stressful. I mean, you talking about it, it's only 90 minutes long. I can feel it in my gut being like, oh my God, the most stressful shift I've ever had.
Yeah.
But I said shift.
Shift.
The word was shift. Fantastic film. Really good shout. Okay, before we get on to, we've talked all about film. All of our awards have been film related, but of course, a lot of the stuff we talk about on this show is TV. I think it's only right that we talk about best TV. And that, look, I don't have a singular best TV
Same.
show to
There's
give
too
you.
many.
Although I could if you pushed me. Do you want to, what do you think your
I'll
problem is?
I'll push you.
Okay,
Talk about all of them.
let's talk about all of them first. I don't have a singular TV thing to give you, but what I've noticed this year is that TV, as it has done for the past 7 to 10 years, has continued to be the place for prestige storytelling and well-executed drama. I mean, you could just take the HBO stuff and be like, that's a great crop. You had Euphoria season 2 at the beginning of the year. Wow. You had House of the Dragon, which caught everyone off guard at being how good it was. I've just finished The White Lotus, which we'll talk about hopefully at some point. I know you're a bit behind on it, but even if you took those 3 shows, you've got such a breadth there of talent and approach and just brilliant stuff. But then you've got something like Dopesick, which I believe came out last year in the States. I think it only came out here with Disney Plus. Excellent. You have the one, if you had to push me, I would say, because I banged on about it so much, sorry to bore people, but is Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Which, as I've been trying to say before, is not just the conclusion of a series. It is Vince Gilligan, one of the premium showrunners of the past prestige era of TV, bringing to a close an entire TV universe that he has created. You're watching not just the end of Breaking Bad, you're watching the end of Better Call Saul as well. And it is done the way that Better Call Saul ends, particularly that last episode. It's like Shakespearean in terms of its drama. There is a lot. If I could have done best line, I would have done it, but it's an absolute spoiler.
Okay.
Because I have to contextualize it. There's a line that Bob Odenkirk gives as Saul in the last one. I was like, that is like Arthur Miller-esque moment. I like the way he says it. That's right in the chest.
Cool, I need to watch it.
Fantastic. I mean, you were talking last week where you love a legal courtroom drama.
Yeah, I know. I need to get in there. I should have said Better Call Saul for all of that.
Yeah, right. I mean, so if you push me, I would say my TV highlight this year is Better Call Saul, because it's one thing to launch a show, as we've seen throughout years and years. We've talked, House of Dragon launched this year. Yeah. White Lotus came back. Euphoria came back. But to bring a show to a conclusion that has the dramatic weight and premium storytelling of more than film is just great. So it's been a great year for TV. It continues to be a great year for TV. And Better Call Saul, guys, you know it. It's bloody great.
Yeah, I echo so much of what you said. House of the Dragon was a show that I thought I would be like, yeah, it's okay. I guess it might get better, but
I'm hooked.
I got to the end and I was like, oh, it could only work in a TV show to have so much complexity and so many different layers of understanding. And I feel like I've got a master's degree in Targaryen family timelines.
Yeah.
And it's so good at just getting you into everyone's name and who's who, even though they all sound the same. And I said this when I reviewed it, but it's amazing at making you feel like you're really clever for understanding all of these different dynamics. And it's just so much more dense and complicated, which I don't think actually people give it enough credit for how smart I think House of the Dragon is. So easy to be cynical towards it. Severance is a show I've banged on about, which I think I'm so excited by how that season ended, and I cannot wait to see more. I do worry that the question over what the truth is about that show might be more interesting than the solution, just because I've been burned in the past from shows of a different era,
Lost.
like specifically Lost. But it's really interesting. White Lotus is you and I were slightly concerned that it wouldn't be as good as the first series, such fast turnover, but it's so interesting, and it does.
The Crown too.
The Crown, yes.
Sorry
absolutely.
to interrupt. I was just going to say, so like The White Lotus and The Crown have obviously come out recently. We know we've spoken about
They're
that.
sustaining their quality, aren't they?
Fantastic quality, and you and I will at some point put out our spoiler discussions of both those things. If you haven't caught up with either of those series, you must do. Really great quality TV.
But I think I'll give my award to a show which I watched, I want to say around April, and that's Pam and Tommy. It's a show that really, I started it and I was a little bit cynical from it, but towards the end, I couldn't stop watching it. And I think the performances in there from Sebastian Stan and Lily James are just transformative. And it took a very simple story, which I don't think anyone really understood very well, and does what great storytelling does, is it tells you something really much more rich, deep, and more complicated. It was also such a wonderful, it's a period piece set in the 90s, and it's such a wonderful conflict and byproduct of that era. That story wouldn't have been as big without the era of digital VHS and how things spread virally through the post and what it meant to capture something. And Seth Rogen's role is like really good and really funny in it. And I got to the end just thinking like, God, this is such an interesting dissection of media and attention and questions which we still very much are trying to figure out today about what right does the public have to the lives of famous people, of royal families, of politicians, and what right do we have to own images of them and what relationship women have in the media and how that works. I think it was such a of its time drama that felt really modern and relevant, and I think a lot of people have slept on it, and I wish they would go and watch it because I think it's fantastic and that you should stick with it.
Fantastic. I mean, and also we did a little shout out that episode about Sebastian Stan because we also talked about it with Fresh. And on Instagram,
about five different Sebastian Stan fan accounts followed us and like reposted our content.
And absolutely. And I'm like, coming around to Lily James. So I need to check that out as well. But good shout,
Lily James is lost. You will never know it was Lily James, which is, I guess, a mark of a great performance.
Absolutely. Wow. Good year for TV.
Great year for TV.
So now let's talk about our best films of the year.
Yeah.
Our highlights and our top ones. And without wishing to dodge the question or dodge the category, a bit like with TV, I don't think I have a singular best film that I could say, this is my best film, you've got to go see this one. But what I have become increasingly aware of is like a little trend with films that I am starting to respect. So a very famous quote in cinema in the 1920s was Al Jolson in the Jazz Singer saying, I think it's something like, no, don't go away, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? You ain't seen nothing yet, that's the kind of the idea. And there have been a couple of cinematic experiences I've had recently, which for me have reminded me of what I enjoy getting out of watching films.
Yeah.
And it's all about fun. Just great, well-executed fun. That fun that is invested in, well-crafted, and incredibly detailed. Now, I know like fun is a very broad term that you could apply, but what I mean by that is like films like Glass Onion, Barbarian, Top Gun, that understand that, and even actually Boiling Point to a point as well. A film that understands that you might have somewhere else to be, and its whole attitude is, don't go away, because you ain't seen nothing yet.
It's worth watching.
I'm going to give you something else. So with Glass Onion, as we just talked about, it's incredibly detailed. It's the, don't look away because you're going to miss something here. With Barbarian, it's the halfway through that, okay, you think you got it, I'm going to show you something else now and stick with me.
At the peak of your attention.
The peak of your
very
attention.
peak.
Don't go away because I'm about to show you something else.
Yeah.
With Boiling Point, it's just like, you ain't seen nothing yet. Look, don't go away because we are stuck in here. I'm going to hold your attention. You think you know, stay with me. We're in this room now for 90 minutes. And Top Gun as well, in the sense that like it takes a kind of just, it's like, how do we make just men flying airplanes into a cinematic story?
Yeah.
Because you're only there, you're there for the spectacle first and the story second, and it manages to gel those two together. So in the context of a media landscape in which TV is so prestigious, and I'm not trying to say that film isn't prestigious still, things like The Whale and Banshees of Inisherin, and these great stories still exist in film, absolutely. But I think sometimes when I was watching Glass Onion in the cinema, when I was watching Barbarian in the cinema, I was just like, there's something specific and special and unique about having fun at the cinema that a film can give you. And like, that's what film shouldn't forget. Because obviously now, post-pandemic, everyone's been talking about the future of cinema and where's it going and what direction do we go. It's just like, just remember to give people a good time. That's why I like those films, because they know that they are consciously making an effort to give you a good time. They're really trying to do something new. And yes, some people might find Boiling Point too tense and stressful. Some people might find Barbarian a little bit contrived. But it's like, I really appreciate a filmmaker and a film that is actively working to hold on to you, which sounds like what wasn't happening with your Avatar 2 experience, right? Yep. So if I was to have just a takeaway, I'm like, you know what? It's just like, get rid of the snobbery. I just want to have a really fun time and just focus on that. When we had the Sight and Sound poll, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that, which is a very criticky list. It's Gene Dillman, number one, it's Vertigo, it's Citizen Kane, those films, long, old, very testing for some people. And I'm like, when I've been talking about it with friends, we've been doing our own sort of top 10s and stuff. And we did very sort of like quick fire, what films would you put in your top 10? And I did one with a friend, and I actually threw Aliens in there, right, in my top 10. And my friends have said, oh, that's interesting. Why would you throw that in there? And I was like, because, well, for many reasons, because it's fucking great. But the film, we shouldn't forget that films are as much, can reach the heights of as much as being high entertainment as high art. And high entertainment and high art are just as valuable. And I think what occurred to me watching things like Glass Onion, Barbarian, I was just like, God, these sometimes cinema and films can be such a bloody good time.
Yeah.
And that's my main takeaway from this year. And I look forward to hopefully having more experiences like that next year.
Lovely. A lot of the ones you mentioned are on my list, and it's a similar feeling of the reasons why we go, and I think it's because why you see all of these different films of different genres is I think we're always looking for something that challenges us in a new way, that makes us feel something that we maybe forgot or didn't really have access to an emotion or an idea. And it's that idea of coming together with someone or a friend or family and being like, did you also feel that?
Yes.
That thing I unlocked, that feeling which I kind of know, but like, did you also have that? And I liken it to like tasting something really good, and you immediately want to have someone else taste it because you're reaching to have this conversation. It's like, did you also have that?
It's not just me. I'm not alone in this feeling. Yeah.
Didn't you love that? Yes. In that moment, it made me feel X, Y, and Z. And it's like, of course. And like, leaving when credits rolled on Top Gun Maverick, no other films had the entire audience go, oh,
yes. Yeah.
Like that feeling of just what an elation ending that gave you. And I think completely about Glass Onion. I think it just was such a wonderful, satisfying meal of a film. And Worst Person in the World is a film I left the screening of, and I just talked about it with my partner for like 2 hours straight. And we just had so much to talk about, all of those scenes, which I know we've already covered, so I'm not going to go over it again. But that idea of like, God, this is it's articulated really well in idea, which I've kind of known about, but not seen represented in such a beautiful and terrifying and honest way. Yeah. And it's these films that stick with you. And so it is those. It is Barbarian, Worst Person in the World, Top Gun Maverick, Glass Onion. Yeah. It's like things that
films that make you want to run out and they make you actively seek to talk to someone. Yeah. That's what builds a film community. It's the things that it's leaving film going, oh, that was very nice, is not the same.
When you're presented with something that doesn't feel like it's a new idea or, like a Jurassic World Dominion. It's like, I know what that is, and I wish it would do something different to get me excited about that franchise, but unfortunately it doesn't, or something that disappoints you and underwhelms, like Fantastic Beasts. Again, not to go on about the negative. Like, wow, like I was given a new idea, and that was so exciting to me, and that's why I loved it.
I think also, what we're kind of both kind of the Venn diagram of our opinions they're kind of overlapping on is that really, I don't mind if a film is flawed. If it can move me in any way, if it makes me laugh, scared, cry, that's the arouse and a response like that is more valuable than. So take The Whale, for example, which I think some people will be really split on. And I'm not saying that's perfect film, but because I cried, I had such emotional reaction to the end. That for me is almost more valuable. Yeah. And I don't care. Some people might say, oh yeah, but it's very manipulative. I'm like, yeah, but I don't care because it got me to cry. Isn't it wonderful that this thing that's completely artificial got me to cry? If this thing can get me to laugh, it's like people saying, that's a really stupid joke. It's like, it doesn't matter. If it got me to laugh in this sort of dead-eyed world, that's a fucking miracle.
Oh, Bones and All for me, which I know you didn't get on with, but like the ending of that just completely broke my heart. I adored the way it looked. I could have spent so much longer in no shade, just like, what I mean? Like, I just really was taken by it, and I thought it was just absolutely beautifully told. And there are moments there where I was just horrified and scared, but also just completely heartbroken by that film. And it's that feeling of like, you really made me feel something. And for 2 hours of staring at 24 frames a second, like that magic has just got me to feel something.
Go for the heart.
God, we're getting so emotional on this talk.
But that's it. It's emotionally getting the heart
away. But that's why you do it. It's why you see the stuff that is a little bit crap sometimes. It's why you try out new things. It's like, give me something good.
Yeah. It's been an interesting year, and there are many more interesting films to go. Next week, in the new year of 2023, we will be talking about some of the exciting films that are coming out.
And chances are there'll be a bunch of things that we didn't mention, which will be some of our favourite films at the end of next year.
But look, that's our review of the year. Those were the Pulp Kitchen Awards, the first of their kind, the inaugural ceremony. But what did you guys think? What really stood out for you this year? What moved you? What were you disappointed by? What really surprised you? I love it when a film surprises you. Please let us know at hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. We will read through those, and we're just keen to know because we want to know if we're alone in enjoying certain stuff.
I bet there are loads of best scores that you and I have missed out. That were
Totally.
so good.
Totally.
So I just was like, I can't overthink this. And I was like, I just need what's sticking with me right now. And I went for Batman. But
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I bet there are so many great scores. I go, oh, yes, that was so good what that did. So write in, give us some of your best of the years. Any category will do. I'd love to just like wrap off a bunch of them in the new year.
Totally. Yes, so that was our roundup, and I wonder what we'll be making the Pulp Kitchen Awards next year in 2023.
Okay, George, let us go through the emails that we've got this week. The email today is from friend of the show, Bevan.
Bevan,
the Irish correspondent.
Bevan is a place. Our place. You know, Talking Heads. Heaven. Our place where nothing
Bevan,
ever,
I'm so
Bevans.
sorry.
She's probably had that one before.
Bevan, if you remember, we sent on a task to write a review of Banshees of Inisherin from an Irish perspective, which she did very kindly and sent us a detailed response. You can find that. It was in an extra spoiler discussion on the feed where we covered a couple of other films. But Bevan writes in once again to say, hey guys.
Our final email of the year.
Our final email of the year from none other than Bevan. He says, hey guys, ! I hope you're doing well.
Yes, Bevan, thank you. I hope you are too.
And are having a nice festive season.
It's delightful, and I hope yours is too.
After seeing the Golden Globe nominations come out, brackets, bit of an Irish sweep, close brackets, wink face, close brackets, I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe if you have any predictions for the upcoming season. I do a draft for the major award ceremonies, and I'd love to hear what you guys think, and when the other nominations come out, what your drafts would be. Really been loving the content lately. Looking forward to the next episode. All the best. Your friend, Bevan.
Delightful. Thank you,
Oh, she says Bev.
Bev. Sorry, Bev. Thank you.
It's Bev.
A good question. Well, the thing is, I've got the Golden Globe nominations here, and I think we should quickly read through them.
Let's do it.
But it's important to remember that the Golden Globes, as pointed out by Mike Kermit for many years, has a lot. I feel like the Golden Globes are slightly overemphasized, and it's like the cynical edge of Hollywood because it's voted for by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which is a very small group of people, which aren't made up of the actual talent in the industry. He says. But anyway, obviously the BAFTAs and the Oscars are the ones that we're heading towards. But nonetheless, the Golden Globes, let's just read through them. So it's important to remember about the Golden Globes as well. The reason there's such an emphasis on them is that they are like the people look at the Golden Globes, see what's been nominated, and it's like a barometer of the rest of the awards race.
Okay.
So before this, you've had all the festivals and circuits. It's like, okay, we've got to the Golden Globes now, at the beginning of January. What from this will make it through to the final Oscars race? Okay. So the Golden Globes nominations this year: Best Motion Picture Drama, Avatar: The Way of Water,
No way.
Elvis, okay, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Top Gun: Maverick. Right. Oh, we already know what you think about Avatar: The Way of the Water. Elvis, I'm interesting that Elvis is in for drama, not comedy or musical. But okay, look. Very good performance in it, and it's a Baz Luhrmann film, but I don't think it really has got enough in it to justify winning that category. The Fabelmans, deeply excited to watch this. This is Spielberg's new film, very personal one, semi-biographical. Could win. Tar, don't know about that as a film itself, but as a vehicle for Cate Blanchett, I've heard very good things.
Yeah.
I'm actually super pumped to see
Same,
that.
I can't wait.
Top Gun Maverick, I would not be offended if that won, because as for reasons we talked about in the show, why it's so good, but also like biggest selling film of the year, actually has. I would be like you know what? Fine, I'm fine with that.
No one would disapprove.
No one would disapprove. No. Okay. Then we're going into actors in that category, in the drama category. Best performance by an actress in a motion picture drama: Cate Blanchett, Tar; Olivia Colman, Empire of Light; Viola Davis, The Woman King; Ana de Armas, Blonde; Michelle Williams, The Fabelmans. So look, we haven't seen The Fabelmans, so we can't comment about Michelle Williams, although she is great and everything. Ana de Armas, did love her in Blonde, but I feel like there's so much negativity about that film, she won't win. Viola Davis as The Woman King. I like Viola Davis. Haven't seen The Woman King, and I felt like that film did not perform as well as a lot of people had hoped, which is quite sad. Olivia Colman in Empire of Light. Look, I think Empire of Light is a really, really big disappointment, and Olivia Colman does her best with it, but I think there are better Olivia Colman performances out there. I think that from the word around the campfire, it looks like Cate Blanchett is a real strong contender for Tar. Best performance by an actor in a motion picture drama. Austin Butler for Elvis. Hey, I said so. Yeah. Deserved. Brendan Fraser for The Whale. Front runner at the moment.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman for The Sun. Not seen The Sun. Hugh Jackman, always good though. Bill Nye in Living. Nice to be nominated.
Yeah.
Then Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. I don't know that, I'm afraid. Then Best Picture, musical or comedy. Babylon, not out yet. That's Damien Chazelle's new one with Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Glass Onion, and A Triangle of Sadness.
Okay.
Good category because, I mean, Banshees, very well respected. Everything Everywhere, massive success.
Critically and commercially, between critics and audiences alike.
Glass Onion, similarly, commercially and critically, audiences and critics, should I say, really like it. Triangle of Sadness.
Could be a critical darling, but I personally didn't think it was that good.
Maybe that's as far as it goes. Yeah. But that's an interesting category. I would say if you had to pick one, it's hard because Babylon's, I haven't seen that yet, and that could be a massive film.
Yeah.
In a way, I love Glass Onion, and obviously I'd love that to win. But in a way, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that film is so strange and managed to be such a success, it almost deserves recognition for pulling off that feat. Yeah. Best performance by an actress in a motion picture, musical, comedy. Leslie Manville for Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Not seen, but look. Hey, look, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris looks like the kind of film you watch on Sunday afternoon with a nice cup of tea. Okay. However, any
what's a girl like me doing in Paris?
Any award that recognises the talent of Leslie Manville is perfectly fine, in my opinion. She deserves all the credit she gets, so good for her. Margot Robbie in Babylon. Look, Margot Robbie, she's great, but obviously haven't seen Babylon. Anya Taylor-Joy in The Menu. Haven't seen it. Nope. Emma Thompson in Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. Haven't seen it, but heard it's interesting.
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think she could win
She could definitely win it, yeah.
And I think really then, because when the categories are combined for the Oscars, it's probably Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh together.
Yeah.
Best performance by an actor in a musical or comedy. Diego Calva for Babylon, not seen. Daniel Craig for Glass Onion, deserved. Yeah, understood. Adam Driver for White Noise. You've seen it?
He's very good in it.
I mean,
I've preferred Adam Driver in other things, but he's really good in it.
Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin. I think he'll win that.
Yeah.
There's just the mood for Banshees at the moment seems to be very.
I know what you mean.
There's a lot of traction.
An unspoken buzz.
There's like good traction for Banshees. And Ray Fiennes for The Menu. Okay. Then we've got.
I should watch The Menu over the next few weeks if I can.
Lastly, let's do Best Director for Motion Picture, which is not. They don't split the category for director. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I don't really get it.
Best Director for Motion Picture, James Cameron, Avatar: The Way of the Water. No. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Understood.
Yeah.
Respectable. Baz Luhrmann for Elvis. I can see why, but also, I mean, look, Elvis is one of those films you can watch.
I haven't seen it, but I kind of.
I can tell you from watching it. It's one of those films you can watch and you can go, oh, that's a good bit of directing, or you can go, that is awful directing.
Yeah.
It's really
what mood are you in?
divisive. Yeah, and what mood you're in. Martin McDonagh, The Banshees of Inisherin. Yeah. Spielberg, The Fabelmans. I think it's between Cameron, Spielberg, and the Daniels. I think it's Cameron, Spielberg as the old guard, and maybe the Daniels.
Wouldn't that be amazing if the Daniels won it against James Cameron and Steven Spielberg?
Amazing. And that's it. So look, that's the sort of cursive overview. Bevan, I hope that answers your question about what we think about it. We're going to be talking next week about the films we're most excited for next year, and some of those will be included in that. But on the horizon, I think that's the lay of the land, and you could be looking at a race where it's Best Actor category, as we said, Fraser versus Butler. Best Actress, Yeoh versus Blanchett. Best Picture, I think it's going to be Top Gun v Avatar in the terms of the blockbuster 10.
Yeah.
Avatar, I'm not saying critically it will get the back, but because it's the beam, I feel like the money will buy themselves in. They will be able to buy themselves into the top category.
Did Fabelmans get nominated for best? It wasn't best picture. It was best drama.
Best director.
But not
best picture.
Yeah,
but I think that could still sneak in there. But I don't know if that's a best picture winner. I think it's either what's bloody hell? What were we just talking about? The best picture winner.
Everything Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere, maybe.
Avatar,
Whale. Banshees. Maybe Banshees win it, and it's one of those like Three Billboards because it's slightly it's like a play.
Yeah.
There's something sort of like sophisticated and old school about it. I would think it's a stretch for it to win Best Picture, frankly.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, that's just anticipating what's ahead. Exciting stuff, 2023. Can't wait to see it. Oh, by the way, do you know what I forgot to say?
What?
When we did our best movie lines, my second favourite movie line, And it's a line that James and I will often say to each other when we're putting together the show, like literally plugging in the cameras and stuff. It's not in a movie, but it's film related. It's, Jada, I love you. G.R. Jane too. Can't wait to see it. Uh-oh. Of course.
I'll always do. Uh-oh. And it's just, that tone.
Yeah.
That like, uh-oh. It's the most famous.
Here comes Will Smith to
most
slap
used
Chris Rock.
uh-oh of all time.
Uh-oh.
And then when we were setting up, I was like, Javier Bardem is praying that Will Smith's going to win it. If she loses, he can't win.
He's got the Chris Rock. I just remember Madagascar now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. 2023, looking good. Guys, we've reached the end of the episode, and with it, the end of the year, and the end of the awards ceremony. Look, we don't have a game for you. And the reason is because, well, we spent a lot of time thinking about the awards, but also we just wanted to spend this time actually to say thank you. Again, we gave you a shout out when we were doing our 50th episode, but it's been a year. This podcast is in a different place at the end of the year than it was at the beginning of the year, and that is entirely because of you guys.
If anyone has been listening for a year, you'll know that we didn't have people writing into the show a year ago.
We still ate food.
Without fail, every single time someone writes in, it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And it just means that we have an engaged audience that wants to talk about film, hear what we think about film, respond to us. And that is always really, really fun.
The fact that we can do this and talk now and know that people are listening is a huge thing for us. Yeah. And we love that when those emails come in. It's literally the highlight of our day when we see them.
And even though I already loved films and TV, I am more interested now because of this outlet to be like, oh, that's going to happen and that's coming out. I cannot wait to see it, dissect it. Will I like it? Will I hate it? I want to hear other people. So it's really cool.
So thank you again for a great year. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to watching all of this new stuff next year with you guys. Just have a great new year.
Have a great new year.
Happy 2023. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.